Billings is the largest city in the American state of Montana. Its population is under 200,000, the size of a typical Dallas suburb. And early last month, the people of Billings looked up into the sky and saw something really strange. It was a white blob just floating in the air, but not at a normal altitude. This was high up there. So a photographer from the Billings Gazette, the local newspaper, started taking photographs. And pretty soon, those photographs from Billings were reproduced in newspapers and on websites around the world. The photos turned famous because the white blob in the sky over Billings was a balloon from China carrying surveillance equipment. This is Plain English, where we help you upgrade your English with current events and trending topics. I'm Jeff. JR is the producer, and JR has uploaded the full lesson content to plainenglish.com/552. Coming up today, the controversy over the Chinese balloon, or balloons, as the world is coming to discover. In the second half of the lesson, I'll show you how to use the phrase blown off course, and we have a quote of the week. Let's get going. For an entire week, a large white balloon floated through American airspace. It was first spotted in Montana, a vast and thinly populated state in the American West. It drifted eastward through the Great Plains, across the Appalachian Mountains, until it reached the Atlantic Ocean. Then it was shot down by the U.S. Air Force. The balloon originated in China and was carrying surveillance equipment that weighed about as much as 3 buses. Oh, and here's one more detail. The balloon's flight path took it over sensitive military sites. The story dominated American media and politics for weeks. The U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, canceled a diplomatic trip to China in protest. China, for its part, said that the balloon was used for weather research and had been blown off course. The Chinese government strongly objected to the Americans shooting it down, and then, for good measure, accused the Americans of using balloons to spy on China. Few things unite both political parties in America like suspicion of China. So as the balloon floated through the sky, the American political outrage machine switched into high gear. Both Democrats and Republicans competed to demonstrate their toughness on China. Republicans said Joe Biden, a Democrat, should have ordered the balloon shot down immediately. Biden countered that by shooting it down over the ocean, the military would be better able to recover and analyze the debris. Then, the U.S. government revealed that Chinese balloons had passed through U.S. airspace at least 4 other times in the past, but that the U.S. Air Force had not detected them at the time. The military described it as a domain awareness gap, a technical term meaning they didn't even know they needed to be looking for these things. That same week, a balloon of Chinese origin floated over Costa Rica, Venezuela, and Colombia. The Colombian government released a statement saying the balloon posed no threat, so they let it float out of the country. China issued a formal apology through its embassy in Costa Rica. The Costa Rican president said the issue generated stress in geopolitical relations. Japan's defense ministry said that Chinese balloons have been over its airspace too. Meanwhile, most people reading about this were perplexed. This is a balloon? Yes. There has long been a dead zone up in the sky. Planes dominate the airspace up to about 25 kilometers above the Earth's surface. A typical commercial plane flies at 30,000 feet, or about 9 kilometers, for example, while fighter planes go higher. Low Earth orbit satellites have altitudes starting at about 6,000 kilometers above sea level, and the farthest ones are much farther than that. The dead zone has always been the area higher than planes fly, but lower than satellites orbit the Earth. Let's call that area high altitude. A balloon can easily reach high altitude. Weather balloons go up multiple times per day to collect information from the Earth's atmosphere. But balloons don't have propulsion and they don't steer. So releasing a balloon into the sky has always been a bit of a crapshoot. The balloon goes where the wind wants to take it. That has limited a balloon's usefulness in the past, but now advances in balloon technology are opening up more of that high altitude zone to human exploration. And one of the ways that humans like to explore is to spy on other countries. A balloon can be useful in espionage in a few ways. Satellites can take lots of great photographs from the sky, but anyone who has used the satellite view on Google Maps can tell you satellite photos are grainy when you try to zoom in. Photos taken from a balloon can capture much higher fidelity images than photos taken from satellites. A balloon can also carry other types of surveillance equipment, including microphones and infrared heat detectors. The other advantage is that balloons are cheaper and easier to launch. Countries are now scrambling to figure out what to do about high-altitude balloons. The Chief of Staff of France's Air Force asked, "Do we really want a balloon sitting above Paris and watching our every move. International treaties give countries sovereignty over their own airspace, the air above their geographic area. And international treaties also say that the Earth's orbit, where satellites are, is not the sovereign territory of any country. But there is no broad agreement on what to do about the high altitude area above where planes fly, but below where satellites orbit. Balloons of this type are not only used for spying, there are lots of other uses which are, honestly, more interesting than spying. So, on a future lesson, we'll explore how these balloons work, how big they are, how they move around, and what they can be used for. I don't think anyone believes this balloon was used for weather research. Most people also don't believe it was blown off course. They point to the fact that this floated over sensitive military sites as proof that it was spying on the mainland. I'm not so sure. From what I could read, it's possible to control a balloon's flight path on shorter flights, but a longer flight is harder to control, and this one came all the way from China, so we'll have to see. I did laugh at China's indignation that the balloon was shot down. I guess they wanted it back? I don't know. I have a feeling that if you or I floated a balloon with cameras over a Chinese military base, we would not be getting that balloon back. Today's expression is to be blown off course. There are a few parts to it, so let's take it one by one. Course is a word that can describe your planned path, your planned route. In the physical world, we would most often use this in the sky or in the water. The sky or the water. So you would use course when there is no set road or path. If I drive from my house to the grocery store, I would follow a road, or at least I would if I had a car. But if I were sailing a ship from one island to another, there is no road. That's when we would use the word course. So if you're sailing a sailboat and you're going from one island to another, you would decide on a course. How are we going to get there? You would use a compass, you would use visual landmarks, a map. Maybe today you would use GPS to help set the course. How are we getting from one island to the next? So you set sail and you start following the course, and an hour later, you check the compass, you check the landmarks, you check the GPS, and you find out that you are no longer following the course that you originally planned. If that's the case, you have been blown off course. The wind blew the sailboat in a direction that you had not planned to go. The other place something can be blown off course is in the sky. Just like on the open seas, there are no roads in the sky. Modern commercial airplanes don't get blown off course because they have lots of GPS and navigation equipment that help keep them on their flight path. But wind can affect a smaller airplane or anything else that doesn't have much control over its direction. The Indonesian Navy was conducting a parachuting drill at an airbase. Just as a parachuter was floating down through the air, a burst of wind blew him off course. He was trying to land at an Air Force base, but the wind blew him off course. Instead of landing at the Air Force base, he landed in someone's backyard 10 kilometers away. He was uninjured. This reminded Asian viewers of a popular Korean television drama called Crash Landing on You. In the series, the South Korean heiress encounters a North Korean soldier and falls in love with him. America and China were not exchanging love letters after a balloon of Chinese origin floated over sensitive military sites in the United States. China says the balloon was used for weather research and it was blown off course. The explanation is that China was doing meteorological research in the Pacific and that the wind accidentally took this balloon, which was being used for purely civilian, innocent, scientific research. The wind blew this balloon off course, and the balloon and all its sensors happened to float over nuclear weapons silos of China's geopolitical rival. There is no way to know for sure, but if that is what really happened, then the wind has a cruel sense of humor. Time for a quick quote of the week. It's from Michelangelo, the Italian Renaissance man, an architect, sculptor, painter, and poet. He said, "Genius is eternal patience." It took 4 years to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican City, so Michelangelo knows whereof he speaks. Genius is eternal patience. By the way, I have seen Crash Landing on You. It was cute. I liked it. There was a time when Netflix was buying up a lot of Korean stuff, and that show was a real hit in Asia, but it never really caught on in other regions. I liked it though. Crash Landing on You, the beautiful heiress to a department store fortune, is blown off course during a parasailing trip, lands in North Korea, and falls in love with an enemy soldier. All right, that's all for today, March 6th, 2023. This was lesson number 552. So you can listen to the full content at plainenglish.com/552. Coming up on Thursday, Titanic, the movie, 25 years later. I saw the re-released 3D version in theaters, and so this is a good time to look back on the movie's impact. That's coming up on Thursday. See you then.